Welcome to Winging It. We're doing deck building today in Arkham Horror, the card game. This is a special deck build that I am doing in conjunction with these many other content creators you can see on this image as part of the Many Faces of Charlie Kane, which is being organized by Veronica from Till the End of Time. There's links in the below. You can find out more information about that. We are all doing a different combination of deck building for Charlie Kane. I am doing Seeker and Mystic. And as soon as I got that as the deck build that I should do, I'll tell you, I've played a lot of Daisy, one of my favorite investigators, in my top three. And so when I think of Seeker Mystic, I think of Daisy. Of course, I could have also thought of Luke, but I played more Daisy than Luke. So I decided that I would create the Many Faces of Charlie Kane Daisy at Home edition. Mom, we want Daisy. We have Daisy at home, except Daisy at home is really Charlie Kane. So I decided to lean into a lot of what would be in a Daisy deck, and then try to make it work for Charlie, and try to see, what kind of strengths we might get out of using Charlie instead of Daisy. I will tell you that if you know Devi from Obscure Studies, I actually ran this deck by him, and his first response to me was, "Oh, wouldn't you just be better off running Daisy?" I was like, well, that is kind of the meme. That's the deck that I'm creating. But he actually helped me tweak it a little bit and I think make it better. I will say that I actually did give this deck a trial run. And it was actually a slightly different version. I made some tweaks based on my trial run. I ran it through the new Fortune and Folly standalone scenario alongside Jenny because it just felt thematic for the two of them. And I will say the deck performed really well. I was very happy with this deck. So it is a 29 experience standalone deck. You will need to add 3 weaknesses to this to play it in standalone. And normally I don't do standalone decks, but I think it makes sense for exploring this kind of thing. So I will tell you kind of the centerpiece of this deck, because we are taking a Daisy at Home theme, is I definitely have my 2 staples in Daisy would be the Old Book of Lore and the Encyclopedia. And both of these I think are kind of good in Charlie because he can only take so many actions, before he exhausts all his allies, especially at the early part of the game. So having an old book of lore, where you can choose an investigator location, that investigator searches the top 3 cards of his or her deck for a card, draws it, and shuffles the remaining cards into his or her deck. That's great utility. I mean, you'd love to have that person along. I mean, that's why you like having Daisy along. So, having Charlie be able to do that is pretty good. And then I also have the Encyclopedia, this is the level 0 version because that now exists, where you can exhaust it, spend 1 secret to choose, and it's got 5 secrets, choose an investigator location. That investigator gets +2 to a skill of your choice until the end of the phase. So again, this is kind of the support role, or he can buff himself. And so, given that he's got, stats of 1s, giving him a little bit of boost. Of course, he has other ways to boost his stats by exhausting his allies. I assume you know how Charlie works. Veronica went over all of that in the intro video, so I won't go into that too much. But this just gives you another way to boost your skills, or to play the support role of boosting your allies. So that's why I put Encyclopedia in here. Now, there's 2 allies that I wanted to go ahead and add in to support this. First is the obvious Abigail Foreman. So it gives her, you can attach a tome to her. It's a free trigger, or you can swap, tomes. And then when you exhaust that action ability, you can exhaust Abigail Foreman to resolve its effect again. So if we have Abigail out, of course, you can just exhaust her to get 2 intellect, if you're trying to do an investigator, 2 evade, with his ability. But if you have an encyclopedia out, you could boost that twice to give, +4 stats, or you could boost 2 different people, which is something that I, like to do in Daisy and multiplayer and stuff. So obviously very good, or 2 searches of the Old Book of Lore. So that's why I've got Abigail. But the other, and this wasn't actually originally in my original deck, but it was actually a suggestion by Devi when he saw my deck. Well, the whole thing is that Daisy gets extra actions, right? Well, how can we get extra actions? Sure, Leo DeLuca. So I've got the leveled up 1 version of Leo DeLuca just to make it cheaper, because really it does matter. Lee he's got so many allies to pay for. Cost curve is an issue, so that XP to reduce the cost, I think is very worth it. The intellect icon is very good when you're trying to, do kind of secret mystic things. And the 2 health, 2 sanity is good. And, you don't have to exhaust him to use his ability, so he's a really good ally. But he gives you that extra action. So, you could take the first action, boost with Encyclopedia, and then have 3 investigates with +2 or maybe even +4. I mean, you could be investigating at a 5 without even exhausting any allies if you have Abigail out. So, that's that extra action plus, or just take an extra action to give Old Book of Lores to people is really good. So I think that was a really good addition. I definitely, when I was in the standalone, I definitely felt it. Having that extra action was really good, and definitely made me not feel bad about using an action on Old Book of Lore or Encyclopedia. So, it gave me that kind of Daisy feel. Obviously we have Bonnie, and again, I'm expecting people who have watched the video and know how Charlie works. But she can obviously unexhaust people, and she's got her 2 icons, which turns into a 3 stat for Charlie, so that's good. The other ally, now, in my last Leo campaign, you saw me running Michael Lee. I'll be running Michael Lee in my next Amanda campaign that I'll be dropping soon. I really like Michael Lee. I think he might be underestimated by the community, or maybe I overestimate him, but I really try to find ways to put him into decks. But that static intellect boost is really good for Charlie. The fact that you could get 3 intellect or 3 combat is really good for Charlie. Obviously, the +1 combat is good if you decide to make him flexy. Now, that's not a very Daisy thing, but this is where we're going to get a little more value that Daisy can't bring, which is the ability that you can make him a flex, and he can do a little bit of fighting. So Michael does have the trigger of, after you successfully investigate, you place 1 resource on Michael Lee as evidence. You don't have to exhaust him to do this, so as long as we're investigating, we can let him up with evidence. Now, we do have to exhaust him to get the +1 damage at the bottom, so we have to be careful that we're not going to be using Michael Lee for our boost if we are going to be trying to get the extra damage. So that's something we think of. Now, of course, with Bonnie, you could exhaust him for the damage, and then exhaust her, and then exhaust him for the stat boost, and you can get both. So that's something. But anyway, he's good, if nothing else, just for being able to boost intellect or combat by 3. But then it's a little bit of icing on the cake. Actually, I say by 3, but it's actually by 4 because he gives you a static boost too. But then there's icing on the cake when you can actually do extra damage if you need to. Okay, and then we have the Black Cat. Now, I've heard people say that his Elder Sign, Charlie's Elder Sign is really good, so I don't know if you want to use the Elder Sign from the Black Cat, and he boosts such high values, which I did find is true, that I don't know that you need the tablet and the Elder thing, but let's be honest, two wild icons on the Black Cat. I mean, just exhausting it for getting a +3 is really good, and being able to cancel from time to time the elder thing or tablet token is really strong, and having a 3 soak is in health and sanity is also really good. So I actually think the Black Cat is one of his strongest allies, if not his strongest ally. There's an argument also for Miss Doyle, which I'm not taking in this deck. I wasn't really leaning into what I was doing, but obviously Miss Doyle is very good for him. But I think the Black Cat is pretty awesome. I mean, if you're exhausting Bonnie, the Black Cat, Bonnie Walsh, then Black Cat, that's +9. You're testing to 10 without any other boost. Is amazing. We are going to take the Enchanted Blade. Now, because of his Mystic access, he can take the Enchanted Blade. Gives him +1 for the attack, and then if you spend a charge, you can get +2. I mean, it's a really solid weapon, right? You can do 2 damage. If you got Michael Lee out, you could be doing 3 damage. You get the +1, and he's already swinging at a 4 with Michael Lee out. And so any other boost that you want to do, if you exhaust Michael Lee, then you could be, swinging at what? It's his 1 plus the Enchanted Blade gives you up to 3, plus Michael Static is up to 4, and then 3 icons for Michael Lee. It's 5, 6, 7. We're swinging at a 7. That's really good. So he actually has real fight potential. So I only put 2 weapons in because we have a lot of room that's being eaten up by allies. So one of my strategies with this particular build, because we have Old Book of Lore, we have access to some secret cards, was to rely on draw to get out the things that I need. Now I guess I'll mention that I only have one of the Michael Lee and the Black Cat. because they're very expensive, both in terms of XP and of card slots, because we want to put a lot of allies into Michael Lee, or into Charlie Kane, I should say. And so I'm just putting one of the big allies, hoping that I can, again, use Seeker Tricks and Seeker Draw to get them quickly. I do have one Charisma. He already has 4 ally slots. This will give him a 5th ally slot, but if you count the allies, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we want to get them all into play, we need we need a charisma. I do have 2 of Leo's because 1 XP, it's not a big XP cost to have 2 of them in the deck. Plus, this is one of those effects that if you get it early in the game is so much better than getting it later in the game. Whereas we can draw into these others and just, kind of hang on until we build our board state to be super strong. All right, I do have one calling in favors. Now, I didn't actually use calling in favors in my playthrough, but I did think that, I didn't get Abigail out till the very end, and that felt bad. So I was thinking that I really would, with all these one-ofs, it would be nice to be able to, when I'm about midway through, there's a good chance I've hit my calling in favors, pull an ally back to hand and try to tutor out whatever ally I'm missing. So I think that's quite good. What I had before was lab assistance, and I took those out. I wanted to lean into the draw, but the thing is just it's so expensive getting all these allies into play. The spending 2 to play lab assistant was just never something I was willing to do. Um, so I do have 4 economy cards. I have just regular emergency caches to gain 3 resources, and then I have crack the cases. If you discover the last remaining clue at your location, you get investigators at your location can get total X resources, which is that location shroud value. And it just, it was either this or burning the midnight oil, and I thought I could get bigger values to crack the case. And I really didn't have any trouble actually pulling off investigates once I had just a few allies out with Charlie. So, yeah, crack the case feels pretty reliable. All right, so now we're looking at, I'll just go ahead and the Mystic cards, of course, we already had Enchanted Blade. But Deny Existence, now it is true that that he has a lot of soak, so Deny Existence may be a bit overkill, like you already have the soak. But Deny Existence can help you with a lot of things. It's just a good, solid card. I used to run Medical Text and Daisy, and then once Deny Existence came out, I really didn't feel like I had to worry as much about her taking a bunch of damage, with her 5 health. So Deny Existence is definitely a card I like to put in Daisy. Leaning into the meme, I'm going to at least put one here into Charlie. So I'll just go ahead and skip down to the Ward of Protections, because if you have Mystic Access, of course you're taking the level 2 Ward of Protection, right? Fast play with an Investigator at any location draws a non-weakness trajectory card. You can cancel it, and you take a Horror, and he can definitely handle the Horror. So, this is like anytime I have Mystic access up to 2, I'm going to be looking at Ward of Protection because it's just so useful for your team. Now, this obviously is definitely a deck that's intended to be played with a team. He's kind of the flex. Charlie, as people have pointed out, he doesn't really have a lot of acceleration, both in clue and damage, but he can definitely do work. He can definitely do fight. He can definitely get clues, and then he can offer some utility, both with the books and with the Word of Protection. So we had Practice Makes Perfect. This is, I mean, I don't always put Practice Makes Perfect into my deck, but I really like, when you have access to Mystic, you can get Enraptured, which is going to be good in this case for putting charges on the Encyclopedia. It's also good, or sorry, secrets on the Encyclopedia and charges on the Enchanted Blade. When you just have Seeker alone, it can be hard to have enough targets to feel good, like you can take Practice Makes Perfect, but also because we are flexing with them to fight, we can also Overpower as another target. So we have Perception, Overpower, Enraptured, and Deduction are all targets for Practice Makes Perfect. So it is a good card that can let you, again, I've said that people struggle with his acceleration, but he can actually get clue acceleration if he pulls the deductions, because he can, use it to pull a deduction, then he goes back to hand, he can pull it again. So this can help him speed up a little bit. One of the few ways that he can actually get some acceleration. All right, and then protecting the Aranok, I think that's how you pronounce it. I didn't actually play this card in my playthrough, but I'll tell you, it gave me a lot of confidence when I just having it in my hand. So it's fast play if an ally asset at your location is discarded by a card effect or is defeated. Either return that asset to its owner's hand or its owner draws 3 cards. I mean, just using this to protect all of my singletons here, my Abigail, my Michael Lee, the Black Cat, or Bonnie Walls, any of those, like being at risk of dying or just knowing that I could take horror damage on them if I need um, to protect Charlie, and then just pull it back to hand. That just felt good. So it's one of those cards I think it does a lot of work just when it's sitting in your hand, much like Lucky. So I've already talked about the ward protection, and then we obviously have deduction. So if the skill test is successful, we'll investigate a location, discover one additional clue at your location. It can be a target for practice makes perfect. Obviously, just a great card from the core. Playing multiplayer eventually, I would want to level this up to the higher level deduction as if I'm at least 3 or higher, but I had other, you're definitely wanting to invest your XP into allies first. Um, and then in Raptured, I've already talked about it, but this you commit it to a skill test. During investigation, you can put a charge on an asset you control or secret. So that, again, the targets are Encyclopedia or Enchanted Blade, making Enchanted Blade go longer. That's definitely pretty helpful. Overpower, we can pull this with Practice Makes Perfect, but also just a way to help him nail those, fight tests. We don't have as much fight. We're a little bit more investigating, but I mean, I don't know, with Michael Lee and, the Overpower, the Enchanted Blade, he can definitely fight if he needs to. So, obviously, just a very good card, and of course, it draws you an icon, and its target practice is perfect. Finally, Perception. This is the leveled up version. It gives you 3 icons. If it's successful, you can draw 1 card or 2 cards. If you succeed by 2 or more. I really wanted the draw from this Perception. I mean, obviously, he also can use the boost to be able to get him to intellect, to help them beat the investigate test. But being able to draw 2 cards is really good. We want to get through his deck to be able to, get all his allies into play. So that's why I really wanted to put some XP into Perception and make that something that we could do. So this is my Charlie deck. I was really happy with it. It performed really, really well. It wasn't, I joke about it being Daisy at home, but he was able to do some things that Daisy can't do, which is consistently fight, get that Enchanted Blade out and do the extra damage with Michael Lee. Got some damage acceleration there, and the clue acceleration with the deduction. I mean, obviously you're going for something a little different when you have Charlie versus Daisy, but he was able to do a lot of the kinds of things that I would have Daisy do with the old Book of Lore and Encyclopedia, and it was kind of fun, taking a different take on that kind of utility, utility build and using those cards. So anyway, that is my deck. Love for you to give it a try or just give me some feedback on what you think of it, and whether it's something that you find interesting. I hope you've enjoyed this deck build. Please do check out all the other faces of Charlie Kane that other content creators will be doing. I will see you next time on Winging It.